Welcome into another edition of Talkin Ducks, brought to you by Abby's Pizza. We recap a game in which we live in a strange universe that Oregon gets their first Big Ten win over UCLA. The Ducks look dominant on offense, especially in the first half, arguably their best performance defensively. We'll get to that. Then we set the stage for their matchup against Michigan State. The Spartans, Jonathan Smith, coming into Autzen Stadium, a true Big Ten opponent, as we like to say. And we'll also let you know the state of the Big Ten and where the Ducks stand in the pecking order. But let's go ahead and get the rest of the crew introduced here. We've got Anthony Newman, Aaron Fentress, and Joey Harrington. And Joey, let's start with you because I know it was probably impossible for you to stay awake for the entire game, what with that 8 o'clock kickoff essentially. But from the first half that you saw, what did you think of Oregon's victory over UCLA?
Are you calling me old?
I didn't even get a chance to watch it live. It was 11 p.m. for me. I had to watch it the next morning. So,
no. You just came out of the gate saying that you didn't think I would stay up past halftime because I'm old. That's what you said. You insinuated.
We have silver somewhere in all this here.
Man.
Right here.
I'm not Newman. I mean, give me a
Anthony's
break.
always been with the silver and black.
God. All right. But yeah, I went to bed at halftime because I just got tired. Look, it was... I don't even remember the question. I was so offended by what you insinuated.
What do you think of the first half of football that essentially put this game away between the University of Oregon Ducks and the UCLA Bruins, now members of the Big Ten?
With the exception of the last offensive play of the first half, I thought it was the best half of football that Oregon had put together. It was. I would have liked to see more balls in the middle of the field, but they really didn't need to. They did a great job of getting Dylan on the edge. They dinked and dunked until the pressure came up, and then they hit a couple big ones over the top. I mean, they looked like that was probably their most complete half of football this season, both offensively and defensively. And then, you just stepped in a big pile right at the end of the first half. But, luckily it didn't have anything. It didn't hurt anything.
Yeah, it's funny because, Anthony, Dan Lanning said this was the most complete game they've played all season long. And even with that, there still felt like there were a couple of areas they could maybe clean up. But this is what you wanted to see after taking care of business against Oregon State. You have the bye week. You then go to UCLA, and it's not even really a contest, especially in the first half.
Well, you look at it, and you're looking at this team, the ceiling's very high. You play that well. You struggle on offense a little bit in the second half. But, the other team, they play football too. They make adjustments as well. I'm talking about the defense playing well the whole game. They play 4 quarters of football. It's all about 4 quarters. When you UCLA, they average 60 yards per game, and Oregon held them to 48 yards. I mean, come on. It's just like, UCLA, they're a team that can't compete with Oregon right now at all. They don't have the player. They don't have the dudes. The coaching staff is new. So this game should have been like that. Yeah, you beat them by 21 points. That's what you needed to do. But we're going to, pick them apart a little bit and see some things that look like, if you're going to play Ohio State, that might hurt you. But they didn't play Ohio State. They played UCLA, and they did what they needed to do.
Yeah, because, Aaron, this is just the third time since 2015, and I'm going to try and give you a big, meaty softball here. Just the third time since 2015 that Oregon has started 4-0. However, they haven't dismantled teams to start the season like they've had in the past. And a 21-point victory over UCLA, sure, it looks impressive in the first half, but it's not at the caliber we've been seeing other top 10 programs get some wins this year. Am I looking too much into that right now, or is there some truth to the fact that we just haven't seen them from start to finish completely dominate and overwhelm an opponent on their schedule yet?
Yeah, so again, we're nitpicking, right? Because this is supposed to be a national contender, so we're going to dissect every little thing they do wrong, especially against weak opponents, right? But we wanted last week, we all said we want to see them come out and dominate start to finish. Now, they didn't dominate the second half, really, but we'll talk about this later. I'm going to save some of that for later. But the first half, they gave us what we asked for. They completely destroyed a team they should destroy. They were scoring at will pretty much. They extended their consecutive drives with a score to 11 in this game. They were completely dominating a weak UCLA offense. We knew they were weak coming in. And so they gave us what we wanted. And then all of a sudden you had the pick six. We'll talk about that later. But I'm not even really bothered by that. So I'm going to say, hey, they gave us what we wanted for a half. Not necessarily in the second half, they didn't give us what we wanted, but I have some excuses for them I'll give you later. So overall, I'm fine with it. They took down a team they should take down. Does it mean I think, they're necessarily overall better? I don't know, but I think they did what they needed to do.
Well, hold on. Am I sensing Fentress is becoming a Duck apologist? Is that what,
I mean, I don't know, Joey. Half his content, he said he'll save it for later. So.
I know. It's like, I think he was going to have some excuses that he was going to throw out normally that's reserved for the Newman side of the discussion, but okay, all right, go ahead, sorry.
I mean, a closing thought on this here, Anthony, since Aaron is going to be so cryptic and we're going to have all of his answers and his insight.
Yeah.
The show goes on here. Is this, you said we saw some glimpses of what this team could be, and they flashed a lot of potential. And, they're building there. And to really tee it up for your favorite phrase here, is this just one more step that we're seeing in the overall development of this team, this roster, this coaching staff, of what they're trying to put together as they inch closer to their best product on the field this season?
They are. They're getting better.
Yes, there it was.
That's what you want, Joey. That's what you want in a football team. When you go through the season, if you're making the same mistakes that you made in week one, you're in trouble because, down the road, you got some teams that you can't make those mistakes against. We're not seeing the same mistakes. We didn't see broken coverages. We didn't see a whole lot of missed tackles. We didn't see a lot of dropped balls, fumbles, interceptions. Those will hurt you down the road. We saw solid football. Now, again, UCLA, they're not a great team. But they're still in the Big Ten, former Pac-12 team. They're from UCLA down in Los Angeles. They got 4- and 5-star players. They're just not very good right now. So Oregon did everything we wanted to see, but yet there's some times where you're like, what's going on there? They're kids. They're human. They make mistakes. Those things happen.
Okay, so I see here in the A block, you have here any concern with the 6 points in the second half. So let me address that real quick, all right? So they only had the ball 4 times in the whole second half. Now, they came out, they went punt, right? And so if we're really going to dog them, it would have to be them because the next possession was a touchdown. And then the last possession where they ran off 6 minutes while not really trying to score, they were just trying to end the game, right? So am I really going to ding them for only scoring 6 in the second half? I'd have to harp on those 2 drives. But let me take you back in time real quick. I'll never forget this game. 2012, Oregon at ASU. It was 43-7 with 11 minutes to go in the second quarter. They were on pace to score 135 points. Well, they finished 43-21. The Ducks didn't score again for 41 minutes of football. Does that mean that they were bad or they didn't? No, they were kind of in cruise control. They want to just get out there with the win, no injuries. And so I sort of feel like I'm going to give Oregon the benefit of the doubt in that area in this game. I think had they put, their foot on the gas and really tried to hammer UCLA, I think they probably could have. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt for the second half for all the reasons I named and just say that this was a really good performance, save for the fact that the second half was just kind of weird because they didn't have the ball very often.
I'm just going to look at my watch and make note of this. At 1:19 Pacific time, September 30th, 2024, nearly 13 years after he made his debut on Talkin Ducks, Aaron Fentress has finally become a Ducks apologist. We've got to take a break to just absorb this new reality we live in here. But when we come back, Dillon Gabriel, another record-setting day for him as he put together one of his finest performances. We'll let our resident quarterback take a closer look at that when we come back on Talkin Ducks. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. We're still recapping Oregon's victory over UCLA. It was dominant on the road. Dillon Gabriel put together a really nice performance, 31-41 for 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also became just the 4th player in FBS history with 16,000 yards or more and the 3rd all-time in touchdowns with 134. Joey, we saw his numbers compared to yours last week. It's a little skewed, of course, with how many games he's played and the era that he plays in. But we've seen Gabriel be pretty solid this entire season. We've talked about the offensive line, some of the scoring, some of the defense. But, Gabriel puts up those numbers that you're hoping he's going to do on the road. And what'd you think from him, especially in the first half?
It's been pretty incredible to see. You know, we've had a couple years of Bo and his completion percentage. Dylan, the way he's spread the ball around. And yes, I mean, we've talked about this plenty. Like, a lot of that stuff is just quick hitting around the line of scrimmage. But he's also hitting balls down the field, right? He's hitting the deep cross for a touchdown. Through the second one, you know, down the middle of the field a little bit. You know, could have, if he put it out in front, probably would have walked in. But God, I mean, he's, against Oregon State, was hitting balls over the middle, throwing, you know, great deep dig routes, some great, you know, deep curls. Like, there really isn't anything that I haven't seen him do, or that I sit there and say, ooh, he really needs to improve on that. Like, it's truly been, and even when the offense has been a little bit shaky or a little bit, I'll say unsettled, right? He's still been consistent. If he continues to play this way, there is no doubt that Oregon's offense will be in an incredible place to continue to play the way they have over the last couple games as the season goes on. I mean, he is exactly what this team needs.
Yeah, Aaron, it's really funny because in today's era of college football and the transfer portal and all the crazy numbers and scores, sometimes we don't take that moment just to step back and pause and reflect on what somebody has accomplished. And when you hear those numbers, one of just 4 with 16,000 plus, third all time, it makes him one of the most productive quarterbacks of all time at the FBS level. And say what you want about having an extra year or this scheme and system at Oklahoma. To me, that's incredibly impressive, especially when you look at the fact that what he's done at Oregon here, these first 4 games. Does he give the Ducks, as Joey said, enough offensively at that position to be truly elite to what you have to do if you want to succeed in the playoff and succeed later on in the postseason?
Look, the career numbers, you're only supposed to start at most 4 years in college football. Like, them's the rules, right? So everyone else who was a 4-year starter, which is very rare, started 4 years. Dylan has a whole extra year and a partial year. So still, he was incredibly productive. I don't know if I can fawn over his career numbers when he gets more opportunities than pretty much everyone else. And the same thing with Bo Nix to that end. Now, as far as the interception goes, dude was due. Like, you're not going to go the entire season without having a really bad pass, a pick. It was ugly. It was uncharacteristic of him. He's not a guy who makes those types of mistakes. But over the course of playing football, and you're a quarterback, you're bound to just have those moments. So I have no concerns about it at all. He's got 9 touchdowns and 1 pick through 4 games. So that puts him on pace for at least 30 touchdowns and only 3 picks, which is what he would be after 12 games. So yeah, he's going to be fine. The efficiency is there, which is what you would expect for a guy in his 6th year. There's nothing anyone can show him that he hasn't seen dozens upon dozens or hundreds of times. So he's going to be able to pick apart almost any type of scheme as long as he has time, and the Ducks are doing a better job of giving him time than they did the first 2 games.
Jordan, let me answer the question.
Anthony,
I was going to say, let me answer the question that you asked Fentress. Does Dylan give them the opportunity to be elite, right? Is he doing enough, or is he look, when you have 3 wide receivers like they have in Holden and Evans and Tez, when they have 2 tailbacks like they do, when they have, I'm curious to see what Terrence Ferguson's, how long he's going to be out. But he doesn't have to be, and look, let's not forget that Dylan Gabriel took off on an option for 52 yards against Oregon State, right? Like, he doesn't have to be Marcus Mariota. He doesn't. He can just be himself because he has so much talent around him. Like, it's almost better that he is just smart and efficient and wham, 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 because it doesn't matter who I get it to. He's not getting up to the line of scrimmage and thinking, ooh, I got Megatron out there, I'm throwing it to Megatron, right? Like, he's thinking, what's the defense doing? Where's my open guy? Wham, I'm going to get it to him. And his athletes are then good enough to be that difference maker, right? He doesn't have to be that guy.
But he doesn't have to be that guy for them to win 9-10 games. But he's going to have to be that guy to win the Big Ten championship and get this team to the Final Four, because they're going to go up against teams where their DBs are going to match up with those playmakers, and they're not going to be as open, and they're going to be coming with future first-round picks in the front seven who are going to get home to him. He's going to have to make quicker decisions, get rid of the ball, and make big-time plays because guess what? The other team's offense is also going to score points. So he's not going to be able to cruise to these types of wins. He's going to have to make plays against better defenses with the score a lot closer in the second half, and that's where the challenge is going to be because he's never really done that.
True. But here's my point on this, is that defenses are always at a disadvantage, right? If you have one wide receiver who is significantly better than everybody else, if you've got Calvin Johnson out there, right, then everybody knows you're going over there. You tailor your defense to that. When you have equal and fantastic talent spread across, sure, they're going to have good DBs paired up, but there's always going to be a soft spot. If they're in cover, if they're in a two shell, the soft spot's going to be up front. If they're in, if they're in single, there's going to be a one-on-one matchup that you like. And yeah, sure, it's going to be against a better athlete once you start playing against DBs of Ohio State and Michigan. But my point is that he is able to recognize. Yeah, he does have to make a great throw. There will be 4 or 5 times this season where he has to say with his arm or with his legs that he has to fit something into a tight window. He has to get himself out of trouble and make a play with his legs. That's going to happen. But my point is that he doesn't have to carry the team on his shoulders every single game, every single down, every single series, because he has so much talent around him. Yeah, there are going to be moments, but far fewer moments than there would be at other places. Fair?
I want to know, Newman, what would you do to disrupt Dillon Gabriel?
That's hard. I wanted to make this statement, and I am, and it's directed towards the offensive line. Before the Oregon State game, there was 7 sacks. And after the Oregon State game, have they touched Dillon yet? Has anybody touched Dillon? No. So they're getting better. That offensive line is getting better. And that's what's hard as a defensive guy, defensive coach. How do we get pressure on Dillon? And Joey said it. Okay, this Oregon team has talent around Dillon. There's so many receivers. Who's the guy that we need to stop? Tez? Yes, he's probably the fastest, or maybe he runs the routes the best. I don't know. And then Ferguson, if he's healthy, he's a tough tight end to deal with. And they're the running backs out of the backfield. So you hope you have enough dudes on your defense to stop everyone. And also, you have to execute. Just because you got the guy doesn't mean you're going to execute. So there's always a lot of pressure on the defense because of the supporting cast that Dillon has. I'm going to try to sit back and let him throw the football from time to time because if we rush him, then he's going to take off and run. And now we're really in trouble. We can't have a quarterback running and throwing. We just have to do one or the other, not both.
You hated that back in the day, didn't you?
Oh, couldn't stand it.
You got locked up. You got them all locked up. The pockets collapsed, and all of a sudden, there goes Steve Young, right?
And running. Randall Cunningham.
I was about to say Randall Cunningham, yeah.
And running a 4.5, right?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of running, we got to run here real quick, but when we come back, we'll talk about this Oregon defense. Dan Lanning said it was their best performance of the season. We'll let Anthony break it down when we come back on Talkin Ducks. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. We've already covered the offense. Dillon Gabriel, they were very impressive against UCLA, but they weren't even the best side of the ball. According to Dan Lanning, this Oregon defense played their best game of the season. They hold UCLA to under 170 yards total offense. They get 4 sacks, but more importantly, Anthony, they got off the field. They held the Bruins to just 1 of 10 on 3rd down, and this really did look like the solid Oregon defense we expected coming into the season that didn't necessarily show its face against Idaho and Boise State to start the year.
Well, I'm not a stats guy, but when you look at the stats for the defense, it's outstanding. I mean, it really is. I mean, to hold a team, D1 football team in the Big Ten, UCLA, to 172 total yards, that's outstanding. And also, 1 of 10 on 3rd down. You're getting off the field. You're getting a lot of rest. And then let's talk about interceptions. You had 2. You had 5 pass breakups. I mean, these guys were playing the front end, the middle linebackers, the back end. Everyone was playing well. No busted coverages. Okay, not a lot of missed tackles. You played solid for 4 quarters. That's what you want to see in the defense. In the front line, the defensive linemen, the linebackers, getting all the tackles. Derek Harmon in the middle, number 55, he's unstoppable. You don't have nose tackles, D tackles, getting 5, 7, 8 tackles a game as a D tackle. Are you kidding me? He's getting double teamed the whole time, but he's breaking through the double team. So this team is, the defense right now in this game, they played outstanding.
And Aaron, you've always talked about that pass rush for Oregon is going to be the key for them every year. You're starting to see more and more of that.
Yeah, definitely. And we pointed out last week this is not a good UCLA team, but when you they didn't blank them, but they pretty much kind of blanked them. Like 2 field goals in a game like that, especially when
0 offensive touchdowns.
Yeah, the other team falls behind early, so they have to be frantic and have to try and go downfield and try. And you just, no, we're not going to allow that. The third down number is ridiculous. They got 4 sacks. They got tons of pressure when they weren't getting home to the quarterback. Producing ill-advised throws by the quarterback. So I have to give them a full-on A+. You can't really do much better than they did. And yeah, I can nitpick on the competition and they're going to play better teams. They are, but that was as good as you can be against almost anybody in that type of situation. And Dan Lanning's right. I mean, they didn't have the mediocre half or a mediocre quarter or give up, a touchdown in the fourth quarter when the game's still on the line like they did against Boise or Idaho. They just completely destroyed. So yeah, props all the way around. Who said that?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Aaron, again, the Duck apologist, rearing his head. I don't know what to do with myself here. Joey, your thoughts from watching first half before you fell asleep?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna kind of echo Newman's statements, and I don't like stats, but listen to these stats. Let me tell you about all these stats. But I hate stats, so I'm not going to talk about stats. But these stats are incredible. 7 tackles for loss, right? Am I off on that? So here's the thing that to go along with the 4 sacks. My thing, we talked about it last week, at least on the defensive side of the ball, is that defensive line was supposed to be elite coming into the season. I mean, we had preseason All-Americans, 5-star, that D-line is loaded. This was the game that they showed up. This was the game that we saw what they could do. And great, 4 sacks. But even when they weren't getting sacks, they were getting penetration to then allow the linebackers to scrape and make a tackle for loss. They were allowing penetration to disrupt and force a bad throw. Like, it's not always about the on-paper stats, which there were plenty of in this game, like Newman pointed out, because he's such a stat lover. But this defensive line is good enough to create those moments that don't end up on the stat sheet, right? To just the disruption, getting somebody off their point, getting somebody outside of the hole where they, hole's supposed to hit here, D lineman disrupts, bounces out wild. Now you instead of a 6-yard gain, you got a 1-yard gain, you got 3rd and long. Like, those are the things that don't show up on the stat sheet that this D line is starting to do, and they had a lot of great stats. So I guess it was great on all sides.
Yeah. Other than the stats, Anthony, is there another step for this defense, or what's the next phase as the competition here in a couple of weeks with Ohio State after Michigan State is really going to heat up here for them?
Oh, you always have to get better. I mean, that's a given because you're going
3 segments in a row now. We've gotten that. 3 segments in a row. We've gotten that.
Can you get that on a T-shirt already?
Well, I know. Aaron said, the competition is going to be better down the road, which is so true. You got Michigan State coming up, and also the next thing you know, you got Ohio State. So it's going to be a dogfight. But if you're playing at that high level, and your team is understanding, your defensive side is understanding what to do and the responsibilities, and you keep getting better every week, that's all you can ask for a coach. It really is. I mean, the ceiling also is still high for this defense. There's a lot of things that are left on the field that they could do better, but they are getting better.
Well, it feels like the most important thing for them to do, at least 2 of them are, continue to get to the quarterback, get off the field on 3rd down. Every coach will tell you that. That's what they want from their defense, but Oregon showed that against UCLA. All right, don't go anywhere. When we come back, Dan Rubenstein from The Solid Verbal will join us. He'll share his thoughts on Oregon versus UCLA, a preview of Michigan State, and a shakedown of the Big Ten. Real quick, Joey, before we go to break. Yes, go ahead.
Newman, what's your T-shirt size? I'm getting you I'm getting better T-shirt.
Okay.
Extra large.
Extra large. Got it. Thanks, Jordan.
Getting bigger. All right, we'll be back in a little bit on Talkin Ducks. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Time now for our good friend Dan Rubenstein from the Solid Verbal Podcast to join us here. And Dan, just a couple of questions here for you. Let's get started. Oregon dismantles UCLA. Just your thoughts on that game with Gabriel stepping up as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good win. Obviously, with how that defense played against the Bruins, not allowing an offensive touchdown, abusing UCLA up front, the defensive front looked great. Obviously, people aren't going to love Dylan Gabriel's pick six, but I don't know, the touchdown was there. He was just a little bit late and got happy feet, but all things considered, it seemed like there was a game plan, that they stuck to it, that they were going to go right at UCLA on the ground with Jordan James and Noah Whittington, that there were opportunities. We, of course, know that there was a clear opportunity for Tez Johnson to throw that double pass for a touchdown, and that didn't work out. But all things considered, that was a dominant defensive performance on the road for a conference win. Weirdly enough, a Big Ten conference win, but hopefully no injuries coming out of that one, and they took care of business. The defense looks very strong, especially as they seem to be rotating more and more guys in and out of the lineup.
And going back to Gabriel here, Dan, how does he stack up against some of the nation's elite quarterbacks? Is he kind of in that top tier, or is there maybe more we could possibly be seeing from him?
Yeah, right now I would say Dylan Gabriel's probably top 10, 12 or so in the country, just because at his height, he's probably one of the best 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the country, but still getting used to this new offense, still, underthrowing some of those deep balls. Even when they're completed, you can see that there is a ceiling to his arm strength. And I think he's terrific in the short intermediate passing game, obviously extremely accurate, and he can win a ton of games. I think the concern right now is that he avoid those 2 or 3 plays that could lose them a huge game, like against Ohio State, like against Michigan, or whoever potentially in a Big Ten championship game. That I don't think his accuracy is called into question. It's just what his top level ability, not his best throw, not his best 3 throws. What does his 6th best throw look like? What does his 9th best throw look like? So yeah, Dylan Gabriel with his athleticism, we've seen the wheels. We saw it against Oregon State. He's a finished product at this point in his career. I think this is probably the best offensive coordinator and the most talent he's been surrounded by on an offense. So his ceiling in terms of production might be to come, but his ability is what it is, and that's very good.
And then how about this Big Ten pecking order? We've got a couple of undefeated teams that might have some soft schedules as well, too, but how do you see the Big Ten as it currently stands?
Yeah, right now I would definitively have Oregon ahead of Michigan, just because Michigan is extraordinarily one-dimensional on offense. As good as that defense is, I think Oregon can win in more ways than Michigan can, so maybe that early November game should be quite interesting. Penn State, I'm going to need to see more from their offense before I consider them truly to be on the top tier of the Big Ten. I think Oregon, I don't think they're on Ohio State's level as an obvious top 4 team in the country. I think Ohio State's ceiling on both sides of the ball is higher. But in terms of pecking order, I think I would put Oregon ahead of USC. I would put Oregon ahead of Michigan. And yeah, I would ahead of Penn State, beneath Ohio State. And their schedule with Illinois, with Purdue, Michigan State this coming week, Maryland. I think it's a great looking schedule. Wisconsin now beat up on offense. It's looking great to win at least 10 games.
And then lastly, your thoughts on this Oregon-Michigan State game. Obviously not the same Michigan State that we've seen Roland Autzen Stadium before, but it is a classic Big Ten opponent.
Yeah, the Michigan State game, it should be an interesting one because it's shaping up to be an opportunity for Oregon to just take care of business. Michigan State has a short week going on the road after Ohio State that it's just a tough spot for the Spartans going to Autzen on a Friday night. It's going to be loud. It's going to be chaotic. Oregon's wearing the color rush looking Heroes uniforms, the all yellows, which should pop. Hopefully like the last time they wore them against Michigan State. I think it was 2014, a Mariota game that he went wild in. So it's a terrific opportunity for Oregon potentially to take advantage of turnovers. It's been a turnover-prone offense. Aiden Childs has struggled a little bit with the takeaways, so it's an opportunity for Oregon. Maybe they're 17, 20 points better, but they win by 30-some-odd points just because turnovers can be that kind of difference maker. I think the defense should be quite good against Michigan State. I'm not sold on their ability to run the ball at the moment. The defense is pretty decent, despite what happened in the Ohio State game. Michigan State does have some players up front, but I think ultimately Oregon is going to have too much speed, and I think they're going to click a little bit more at home than what they look like against UCLA, just because I think it's just going to be a progress thing for Oregon as the season goes on and as there's more and more comforts. I think they're going to be in a great spot against Michigan State. A great opportunity to comfortably win a game in the Big Ten with a lot of people watching, since it's a Friday night game.
All right, thanks again for joining us, Dan. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll give you our initial thoughts on Oregon's matchup against Michigan State and why the defense might have an opportunity to feast against the Spartans. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Big thanks to Dan Rubenstein for joining us as always. And gentlemen, Oregon taking on, I guess we could say, a legacy Big Ten opponent, and Michigan State coming into town. And that's always a great one when Sparty shows up. But when you look at this matchup here, and let's start with you here, Joey, just your initial thoughts or just what you have on your mind coming into this game.
Oh, I don't know anything about Michigan State, but I just wanted to let Newman know that order 708-46655 will be delivered on October 4th. So, yeah, I'll make sure and get it to you.
I'll wear
Getting
it.
better T-shirt. We need to see that next time on the show there, Anthony. But let's go to Aaron here then on this situation, as Joey's still doing some online shopping. Aaron, Aiden Childs, freshman quarterback for Michigan State. Spartans have struggled to score the football this season. Jonathan Smith in his first year. This is also a team that does a good job of getting third down conversions. They're 45% on third down. Looking at all this, what do you make of this matchup for Oregon, where they're still heavily favored?
To me, it should be the same as what we just saw with UCLA. I mean, yeah, that third down percentage is impressive, but then you look at the fact that they're not scoring when they're converting these third downs, and they were only 2 of 9 against Ohio State. Of course, that's Ohio State. They did a good job against Boston College, but they lost that game, and Aiden Childs threw 3 picks in that game. So he looks like a freshman quarterback. He's not ready for this. He's not going to be ready to come in the Austin Stadium and do any damage. So I fully expect the Oregon Ducks to dominate Michigan State in the exact same way they just dominated UCLA.
And Anthony, you've got a freshman quarterback. What are you thinking about defensively to try and make life difficult for him?
Oh, you're going to confuse him. You're going to show him something that he hasn't seen before. You're going to have a lot of team speed. You're going to have guys in coverage man on man. And you want him to throw the ball because he's going to make some mistakes. And yeah, they're converting those third downs. But I had a coach always tell us, yards don't beat you, points do. You have to score. So right now when Michigan State's getting in the red zone, they can't score. They have a hard time scoring. So it's going to be another battle. It's a Big Ten team that will run the football and play good defense. But they're young. They're young at offensive tackle. They're young at receiver. They're young at with some defensive spots. So it's going to be a dogfight for them as well.
Joey, any thoughts on the game now that you're done taking advantage of any deals online?
Well, I did get 30% off, which is good. Thank you,
Good.
Newman. It's
Good,
almost
good.
like I got paid to buy you a T-shirt. But the thing that sticks out for me, honestly, is like quarterbacks are significantly more efficient because they throw bubbles and quick. That's essentially another run play. He's completing under 50. I mean, like almost 55% of his passes, which is like it's. I don't want to use abysmal.
That was good in your day.
I was gonna say, like, we were always shooting for 60%. It was. I mean, it was like, hey, all right, 55. You need to be 65, 70% completions in these offenses now. He's completing 55, 56% of his passes, and he's thrown 8 picks. Those are the two things that end up biting you in the butt, right? And it's not like it was just one game. 8 picks is a lot. 55% over 4 games. Like that is something that is becoming a pattern. Or I should say, or he's just a freshman and learning. So if that continues, it's going to be a difficult day for the Michigan State offense. But, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, 8 picks, that's like almost as bad as throwing 5 in a game there. So now
Not quite.
you have Michigan State.
Not quite.
That was just completely unsolicited.
And don't forget the fumble. Don't forget the fumble because that was the cap.
But then you look at this one more time here, Aaron, and okay, it's really the prelude to Ohio State, let's be honest. Everyone's had that Ohio State game circled. You've got to approach this with the right mentality. What does Oregon need to continue to show on the offensive side of things to make sure that, listen, you're feeling good as you get set for arguably your biggest regular season game in years?
Slice through these guys like Ohio State did. Big plays, move the ball well, just like you did these past 2 games, and do it against a Michigan State team that, again, not great, maybe a little bit better defensively than UCLA, right? And so just continue that pattern of showing that when you are playing at optimal levels, teams are not going to be able to stop you. So that when you play a team that has the talent to get in your way and disrupt you, you have the efficiency and the execution to fall back on in those moments. Because that's the thing. You're trying to fine-tune all of your P's and Q's and executing so that when the competition gets better, you don't fall to pieces against bigger, faster players.
Well said. Like a football coach, basically. So thank you, Aaron. One thing, keep an eye out for that Michigan State pass rush. They did light up Florida Atlantic to start the season. Probably one of the strengths of their defense. So that Oregon offensive line is going to have a little bit of a test at Autzen Stadium. But the Ducks still heavily favored. We'll give our predictions a little bit later. But when we come back, we'll take a closer look at the state of college football, some of the national games that we caught up with, and the state of the Big Ten. What's the pecking order after we saw USC face off against Wisconsin? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Talkin Ducks. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Here's the latest AP poll. The Ducks have moved up to number 6 after the victory over UCLA. And, general question, and let's go with you here, Anthony. At the start of the season, Oregon was number 3 coming in. They didn't really look the part, close wins against Idaho and Boise State, but now they've dominated their last couple of games. Do you feel like this is kind of the number 6 team in the nation at this point of the year in college football?
I'm not a rankings guy.
Not a rankings guy, not a stats guy.
Wait, Jordan, you stopped him. He was about to go straight to the rankings.
I know. Go ahead.
If I was to rank a team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're playing well. They could be at 6. I mean, there's a lot of teams out there. You don't know what happens. Injuries are a part of the game, so things will change as the season goes on. I mean, top players will get hurt, and they don't have their top dog, and all of a sudden now they don't know what to do. So, we got to let the season play out a little more. But right now they're playing good football. I think there's some teams in the Big Ten that may give them some trouble, not just besides Ohio State, but there's a couple other teams that might be a dogfight. Have to do something crazy to win that game. But Oregon is playing good, and they're going this way. I'm not going to say they're getting better. They're climbing. They're climbing. Okay, so that's what you want to see.
Angular.
I want to ask Joey this next question because I'm just very curious his response here because this is just going to be right up his alley, I'm sure. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about, wow, Georgia looks at another level. Texas looks at another level. Is Oregon in that top tier right now? Or would you say there's a couple of programs that you just feel like are in a different echelon right now? And I know how much you love to project and talk tiers and power rankings, but your thoughts, Mr. Harrington?
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care. Do they look... I honestly think that 6 is kind of the right spot for them right now.
Yeah.
They haven't looked truly dominant against a good team. You saw the Georgia-Alabama game this weekend where, Georgia looked like, like a mess in the first...
DOGs for a while. And
in
then
the first half.
WGs later in the game.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it was... But you saw that type of play against another quality team, right? Oregon really hasn't had that matchup. And I think, again, once we see them against Ohio State, we will be able to say, oh, this is definitely a top 5, upper echelon, or this is a 5 to 10, or this is a 10 and below, right? That's going to be the first real matchup. But right now, I like the spot they're at. I like the fact that they kind of got, pushed to the side, been forgotten about a little bit. Let everybody talk about Georgia and Alabama and Texas and and Ohio State. That's fine. Just like Anthony says, just keep angling your ascent upward to the end goal.
Okay, I got that.
And so, Aaron, we've kind of talked about it already, this number 6 seed, but looking at the Big Ten, because remember, there's 39 teams in this conference apparently, and everyone thinks it's Ohio State or it's Michigan, but you're seeing Penn State play really well. You saw Illinois play decent for a little while. Who do you feel is the biggest non-Ohio State threat now that we saw USC knock off Wisconsin? A team that, let's say, Oregon maybe doesn't go undefeated in conference play, a team that might be having a really good season? Because there's a lot of teams, remember, with this schedule that don't play one another, and you have a lot of undefeated teams in the Big Ten right now.
So a team they won't play that would be a threat in the conference championship?
Let's assume you don't run the table, but you've got Rutgers sitting there undefeated that doesn't play Ohio State, Michigan, or Oregon this year, and a team that might be a threat to take one of those 2 chairs in the conference title game.
Yeah, the Rutgers, the Illinois of the world don't really move me in terms of them competing with Oregon. I do think Penn State would be a threat. They're not playing them, though. Michigan's going to be tough. Obviously, I think Wisconsin's still going to be tough. But it's so early. Like Joey said, he doesn't care about the rankings. As someone who had an AP vote, I mean, my feeling on rankings is they're a genius mechanism put together by college football to capture people's imagination. They don't mean jack. Like, they literally do not. Because some people value their perception of the team and what they think they are. And other people value your body of work. And those things clash. Like, why is Oregon ahead of USC? USC has way better wins, and their only loss was at Michigan by 3. That's actually a better resume than almost losing to Boise State, I think. But USC's 13, Oregon's 6. To me, 6 through 15, you could just shuffle them any way you want to, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Why? Because they all have so many more games to play. They've only played 4 or 5 games. So do I think Oregon deserves 6? No. Do I think they don't deserve 6? Not really. I don't care. It doesn't matter because there's just too much football to play. So I'm fine with them being there, but at the same time, if they had been 11 or 12, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine as well. Here's another thing. Sometimes when you rank these things, it's not really 6 through 13. You might be thinking in your head that 7 teams are tied for 6, but you have to turn them in 6 through 13. That doesn't really mean that you really think 11 is lesser than 6. It's just like, yeah, if they play each other, I'd flip a coin, but I got to rank them some way, somehow. So that's sort of where I see it right now. Are they number 6? I don't really think so, but I'm not mad at them for being there. It just doesn't really matter right now. This early in, it's not even October yet.
Jordan, let me
Joey, you
just
got
say
10
this.
seconds.
Indiana, undefeated, at Northwestern, at home against Nebraska, at home against Washington, at Michigan State. I don't know. Finish the season with Michigan and Ohio State.
There's going on. There's going to be a team that's
Indiana.
going to be there that might get into this
Indiana
Big
doesn't
Ten
have the
championship game
talent
you never
base.
win. Anyway, all right, when we come back, we got to give you our picks super quick. We'll let you know when we come back to Talkin Ducks. All right, welcome back. We have to be so quick here because Aaron had one of his classic rants right when I thought we were going to change segments there. So let's go ahead. Oregon, 23.5-point favorites over Michigan State at home. Give me a score prediction and your key group or duck that has to step up. Anthony.
Let's go special teams. Did we talk about special teams yet? I need Tez Johnson. I need Tez Johnson to return a punt return, and also Noah Whittington kickoff return for touchdowns. But I think Oregon covers. They win by maybe 28.
Okay, Aaron.
I don't think they need to do anything but just arrive at the stadium. I don't think anyone specific has to show up. Michigan State's not good. They're not going to score very many points, and they're not going to slow down Oregon. I got a 47-17, and I'm just going to give Michigan State a late touchdown to make it closer than it really is. So that's where I'm at. Covered.
Okay, Joey.
52-13. Both sides play a full game.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. I was going to go 42-13. And so who's your duck or player that has to step up here, Joey?
I don't know. We gotta end the show. We got too much talking.
Someone's got
Okay, we got to end the show. Let's hope the offensive line plays great again. From all of us here, thanks again for joining us. Enjoy Oregon versus Michigan State. Next week, we'll get you set for the big-time matchup against Ohio State. We'll see you next time.